play, tot ok, da? Bine, îi dăm drumul, nu înainte de a mulțumi celor de la Banca Transilvania pentru sprijinul pe care îl acordă acestei ediții. Enjoy!
Upgrade 100.
După zeci de ani de trăit cu furturi și abuzuri, te minți că nu te mai atinge nimic. Dar te întreabă prietenii, cât se mai dă pentru o operație? Te sfidează aleșii neamului plini de dosare penale. Vezi păduri furate ziua în amiaza mare. Și deși nu vrei, simți cum vine furia. Asta a ajuns țara ta? Furia trece și rămâne neputința. Mai puțin acum. Fă ceva bun cu furia ta. Votează USR Plus pe 6 decembrie. Votează pentru o Românie fără hoție.
Visit upgrade100.com. Join our festival. Listen to our live radio show and podcast. Watch our videos. Read our news and updates. Get our community app. All in one place. Upgrade100.com. Install the best version of you now.
Supus unei presiuni globale uriașe privind responsabilitatea legată de ce se publică în propria rețea socială, Facebook a anunțat zilele astea un prim pas concret. E vorba despre un parteneriat în care e inclusă și România cu agenția de presă AFP, mai exact cu structura specializată în fact-checking a instituției media. Despre cum va demara acest proces complicat și, desigur, necesar, dar și controversat, discutăm în seara asta la Upgrade 100 Live, direct cu oameni cheie implicați în acest proiect. Eu sunt Dragos The Team, antreprenor în media digitală, co-owner al Think Digital și fondator al platformei Upgrade 100. Vă mulțumesc că sunteți alături, fie live, în FM, la Radio Guerilla, Facebook, LinkedIn ori YouTube, fie în versiunea podcast pe upgrade100.live.
Focus, focus.
Drop it like it's hot. Say what?
Invitații mei astăzi sunt live din Paris, Bronwen Roberts, AFP Europe Fact Checker Coordinator. Hello.
Yes, hello. Good evening.
Okay, I'm glad we can hear each other. Și din București, colegul Andrei Pungovschi de la AFP România, care este fact-checker responsabil cumva pentru implementarea proiectului la nivelul țării noastre. Salut, Andrei!
Salut!
Haideți să-i dăm drumul. As a warning, it will be a Romglish radio show and podcast since our colleague from AFP Europe obviously will speak in English. So to start with, I would kindly ask you to share some key data, facts and figures about AFP for the general public to understand. Who are you and why Facebook chose your institution as a partner in such an important matter?
Okay, well, AFP, Agence France Presse, it is one of the biggest news agencies in the world. We've got a long history. We're very well respected. We have 1,700 journalists in 151 countries, more than 200 bureaus. So we're a significant player in world media with a lot of respect and a lot of history, and I think that's one of the reasons Facebook wanted us to be part of their program.
Okay, so I think it's important for our listeners to understand that you're basically a press agency with offices all over the world, including in Romania. Așa că o să trec la română să întreb pe Andrei ce înseamnă AFP în România în acest moment și care este rolul organizației locale în acest proiect.
I think it might be a good idea for me to answer in English as well, so that Bronwen understands what I'm saying.
Our audience, it's bilingual at least. So
I'm sure it's not going to be a problem. So AFP has an office in Bucharest and has had an office in Bucharest for many years, from the early 90s. And basically, they just added the fact-checking department this month. Previously, they were offering text, video, and photo services.
Okay, so basically you're a pretty new organization, and this major project is basically it's the moment when this department will start working in Romania also, if I understand correctly, right?
Well, the organization is rather old. It has a history in Romania, but you're right, the fact-checking department is quite new.
How this partnership will practically work, I'm very curious to find out. Basically, when the public will see the first results, especially in Eastern Europe, because we have this complex somehow. We are not that important usually, and we see developments happening in Western Europe, in the States, but nothing really happens in our country. So how this will work, and when we will be able to see concrete results in the news feed?
Andrei has already started publishing. He started this month in Romania. Okay. Romania is our latest country in Europe. For AFP, we've started in 8 countries this year alone since March. Mm-hmm. We started in Slovakia, we're in Czech Republic, and we've also started in Germany, in the Netherlands, in the Balkans countries, and with Romania starting this month. And Andrei's already started publishing.
Okay, what means it started publishing? So let's explain a little bit to our large audience how this works concretely. So basically, most of the people understood that I don't know, maybe starting tomorrow or something, we will see we will have a very clean newsfeed with fake news being flagged or so on. So let's explain a little bit to the audience how this actually works.
We work primarily with Facebook. Facebook's our biggest client. Mm-hmm. And Facebook gives us access to a tool in which we can see various items of news that have been flagged as possibly suspicious.
And who is flagging those news? The Facebook teams or?
It can be users. You know, okay. When you're on your Facebook page, there's a little option where you can point out to Facebook that you think that this information is worth checking. And also Facebook teams themselves might have algorithms that might flag things into a feed, which Andrei has a look at, and he can choose himself what he wants to do, what he thinks is important. By no means is Facebook telling us what to do. Okay. We still very much do what we think is important to do as an independent news agency. He will choose a story, he will work on that story, and either decide that it's false or true or partly false, etc. And he publishes it on a website in Romanian. And using that information, we will be able to flag to Facebook users and whether his findings on a story, and Facebook users will see that on their feed.
So basically, you will provide the context and you will explain why a particular piece of news it's maybe fake or misleading. How many categories you are using usually? Because I noticed that you're using a simplified satire, misleading and fake. But maybe you can explain more about this.
Well, there are about 7 of those categories that you mentioned. So we go from false to partly false to altered. Altered would be if someone has maybe taken an image and changed it, photoshopped it. Okay. There'll be something that would be missing context. Mm-hmm. So someone might put a statement somewhere and remove the most essential part of the story, which completely changes the whole story. Okay. There's satire. We don't do satire too much, but sometimes what we find is people take satire seriously. Yeah. So we might do that. So those will be the broad categories, and then within there, we like to flag what is particularly false. So often what we will find is there's a picture that is the correct picture, but someone has added some text on top of it, which has made the picture incorrect. For example, something we're looking at the moment in some of the countries is there's a video circulating from America showing police picking up something or dropping off something. And the caption that goes with it is saying, look at these police, they are throwing away ballots for Trump.
Okay.
And this is not true. So the video is correct. And it turns out the video is a video of police finding Amazon packages which had been dropped off in the bush somewhere. So the video is correct, but the tag, the line that someone put on that is incorrect. So, we would rate that as false because of what's been added.
Of course, there is no doubt that this is a pretty big responsibility, and on the other hand, there is so much content out there. So there are so many disputable pieces of content in Facebook. How do you prioritize what to flag as being, fake or misleading, due to the fact that I can imagine there are thousands of stories every day?
One of the criteria is what is most dangerous.
Okay.
So if it is something that's going to encourage people or suggest to people that they do something that should be harmful to their health, for example, drinking bleach as a cure for COVID, that would be a priority. And it's amazing how many COVID fake cures, etc., there have been out there. It's quite scary. Another thing would be something that might encourage violence against someone else. Suggest to people that a certain person or a certain group of people are dangerous and should be attacked, etc. Those would be priorities. The most harmful, really, is what we try to get out of circulation.
And you are referring only to external links to Facebook, or even a particular post on Facebook can be flagged as being fake or misleading or dangerous? So only external links from Facebook, or even if I will post something crazy, I can go under your observation? Yeah,
you too.
So
anything
on personal profiles, on personal profiles also, not only external links to different funny websites. Okay, I understand.
And if I can add, it's also, we could look at things on Instagram and on Twitter as well.
Okay, good. So it's not limited to Facebook only. Okay, I asked some of our colleagues from media to also address some questions with you. I will start with Andreea Esca. She's the host of the main news program in Romania from PROTV, and she is also a subject of numerous fake news that are out there. So let's hear what she's curious about.
Cum îi va explica Facebook urmăritorului în ce fel a verificat, cum îi va arăta din ce surse a verificat informația, astfel încât să spună că este un fake news și în același timp să nu poată fi acuzat că ceea ce face este de fapt o îngrădire a libertății de exprimare?
If you mean political freedom of speech...
I mean freedom of speech in general, and also I guess the political part will be a pretty big part of the discussion.
What we do on our side is we check and verify information, as we do on the newswire. And then, we will use that information to signal to Facebook users that there is a potential problem with this story. This is a result of our investigation. You can have a look. We don't block the story. We don't censor the story. We don't remove it. When AFP or another of the fact checkers does a fact check on a certain piece of information, there'll be an overlay over that story, that post on Facebook, which will have a warning saying, have a look at this, and the Facebook user can look at it if they want to, If not, they can click and they can still read that content.
I understand. But judging by the current state of affairs, it seems to me that the number of people needed for this project is very large. So, of course, it's a start. We have some physical persons to talk about, to discuss this matter, because for years nobody from Facebook agreed to tackle this sensitive matter. But how many people do you need to cover in a decent manner such a big challenge?
Probably you will never have enough people. You will always need more people. But at the same time, if you look at the operation that just started in Romania, you might look at it and say, well, there's just one person. But at the same time, I'm not working alone. And this is on several levels. First of all, I'm working in close contact with several editors who are really up to date with what's going on in the world and so on. And the process is quite refined. There are several drafts, several filters, and so on. And secondly, I work with two teams, let's say. A first team would be the Europe Fact Check team, where there are colleagues from several other countries. And why that's really useful is because we tend to notice that specific types of information, particularly around video and photo, you get the same video used in different languages adapted to the local context. And that's very helpful because we exchange information with each other and we actually use each other's work in our own languages.
So the fake news providers are inspiring one from another, right? It's they are copy pasting a lot of techniques.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. Very much so. Okay. You may remember. I'll try to use a local case. You may remember a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, we had an incident in a subway station where the special forces had to intervene and arrest some football supporters.
Yeah.
That video circulated on Facebook in Romania quite a lot, but it wasn't basically fake news. It was the real video. That particular video was used in several other countries where our colleagues found it claiming to be something completely different. For instance, in Serbia, it showed up and it said that it's a video from Paris where the police is arresting people from the subway, either for COVID or more recently in Vienna, claiming that the police was arresting Muslim people.
We like to call Bucharest the little Paris, but not in that respect. In a conversation with a Facebook representative in the past about a famous viral news that stated that the Pope supports Mr. Trump at some point, the answer we received in a conversation during our festival, because Angry 100 is also a very well-known festival in Romania, a Facebook representative replied, how can we know that a journalist did not talk with the Pope? Which I must admit, it's a pretty valid point of view, if you put it that way. But it's somehow symbolic on the difficulty of deciding what's actually true or not. So I'm very curious to find out what's the decision-making mechanism that applies to such so-called news, or in such situations where it's not clear, even if it looks fake, if it's fake or not.
It is thorough work. It's investigative work. It's almost forensic. What we do when we do publish our stories and write our stories is we like to show every step of the way how we arrived at a conclusion. We get as many sources as we can, but we like to show the evidence. So where possible, we try and have visual proof of something. So normally for us, just having a spokesman or a spokesperson saying something is not good enough. Sometimes it's all you can get, but we much prefer having something more concrete. For example, a document, a photograph, a record, something like that,
So in this particular situation, what a fact checker will do? Will call the press representative of the Vatican to ask if that's true, or what's the technique that it's used to? Because if a journalist is saying, "Okay, I talked with the Pope, and he declared that to me, and now he does not agree anymore, or he realized that he said something crazy, and but it's true. It's something that I witnessed it." How do you solve a matter like this one?
It would depend. Each story depends. I mean, if you're talking about the story when the Pope endorsed Trump, is that right?
Yeah, it was one example we used 4 years ago or something in a discussion with a Facebook representative on fake news, and this was the answer. So maybe he talked with the Pope. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that story was debunked because I think it was written by a satirical website, if I'm not mistaken, and they just made it up. So that's different. But in that case, I mean, we also need to trust certain established sources. In that case, obviously we're not likely to get hold of the Pope himself, but we would need to speak to the Vatican and check with the Vatican, with someone, with a named spokesman from the Vatican.
It was one example of satirical news that was considered serious, and it was very a viral one in the States, but previous elections, not those ones. Okay, let me take another question from Cătălin Tolontan. Cătălin is a very famous investigative journalist in Romania. He's heading now Libertatea, one of the main newspapers and websites in the country. So let's hear what Cătălin is asking.
Bună seara, sunt Cătălin Tolontan, jurnalist. AFP Fact Check susține că a verificat și infirmat 678 de știri referitoare la pandemia COVID. Știrea cu numărul 656 se referă la o fotografie în care un grup de bikeri s-ar fi rugat pentru sănătatea lui Donald Trump, fotografie care a fost dovedită ca fiind mincinoasă. Ce legătură are în contextul pandemiei această știre politică cu tot contextul COVID și cum o să faceți, care vor fi normele legate de România, dar și de alte țări, pentru a nu politiza acest demers? Mulțumesc!
I'm afraid I don't know that particular story.
It's just an example anyway. So it's regarding the fact that it's labeled as being somehow COVID threatening, but is nothing to do apparently with COVID, only the fact that there are a lot of bikers with no masks in the same place. But the key question from Cătălin Tolontan is how the public can be sure that the decisions that you are taking are not politically biased.
Okay. We're a news agency first, and we have very strong ethics, and we have a very clear idea of our code of conduct as AFP. And that does not change with fact-checking. In fact, that's what makes us so good at fact-checking. We have our principles that remain. So we do not choose a side. We try to be as neutral as possible. And it's the same in fact-checking. One of the restrictions of the fact-checking project is they don't want us to strike politicians, because there is a sense that we need to encourage freedom of speech, political speech, and allow people to make their own choices. That's not to say if we see something that we think is flagrantly incorrect, we couldn't check it ourselves as we would on our newswire. But it just means we would not flag it on Facebook as such. The story about Trump and the bikers, it sounds like a story that would have had to do with, as you say, masks and social distancing, etc. Whether that would have been Biden or Trump, I imagine we would have done the same thing.
Okay, so the public should trust somehow the tradition of a big media agency of the fact that you have a strong professional standard.
I think so. We're established media with a good reputation, yes.
Okay. The next question is from Claudiu Pândaru. He is the co-owner of Republica.ro, one of the major opinion websites in Romania, also a news anchor to Digi24, the biggest news station in Romania. Let's hear Claudiu.
Câte postări Facebook sunt supuse fact-checking-ului în fiecare zi în întreaga lume?
I'll speak for worldwide. AFP, we started fact-checking in 2017 with one fact-checker, and now we have more than 90 in a team that works in 18 languages across the world. We do, on average, every day about 20, but that's in all our languages included. And as Andrei was saying, sometimes we see the same news or items appearing in different languages. So it would be 20, including all the languages.
And I can follow up on that question if you can let me, Dragos. I asked, we had one meeting with Facebook and the same subject was brought up. Actually, I asked this question. And it's not only, you don't have to look at it only from this point of view. Let's say AFP Fact Check is doing 20 stories. Because what Facebook said that they were going to do now, they want to use artificial intelligence to go after every single share of that one particular story that we debunk. So it's a little more complicated to quantify. The one example that they gave us to explain how our work and the work of other third-party fact-checkers works is, for instance, in September, they said that they displayed warning labels on 4.4 million pieces of content in the EU. And in the same month of September, they removed 100,000 pieces of harmful misinformation about COVID-19 in the EU. So that gives you a little bit of context as to what the effect of our work and our colleagues from other agencies, like news agencies that partner with Facebook, can attain.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe we are talking about 20 topics, basically, because one topic can generate, maybe 50, 60, 70, 100 pieces of content that are starting to be viral. So let's take an example. If maybe today it's about Bill Gates invented COVID-19 in order for Moderna to win the auction for the vaccine. If this particular news, it's a topic that can be then multiplied by different actors in different languages and so on and so forth. So basically, if you are debugging the root, then the copies of this original fake news will be also flagged. Is that right? I understood it right?
No, not yet. Hopefully it will get to that. But where they promise to keep it at the moment is that if you share tomorrow that particular news, and you get 15,000 shares of your post, it will, and I debunk your post, it will go after those 15,000 shares.
Okay, I understand.
Hopefully it will get to be intelligent enough to be able to do what you were mentioning.
I do hope. Another question is from Codruta Simina. She's a journalist of PressOne and also the author of MissReport, in my opinion, the best newsletter covering fake news in the country. So let's hear Codruta.
Hello, my name is Codruta Simina and I'm a news reporter at PressOne. So my question for AFP Fact Check is, will you also fact check news articles sponsored as political content? And I also have a question for Facebook. My question is, if a publisher is a repeat perpetrator of false content, will you limit its ability to boost its content?
We wouldn't strike, as AFP, we wouldn't strike politicians or anyone from a parliamentarian to the head of a party on Facebook. Whether we decided to do it as a news agency, because Facebook is only a client, that's separate. If it were just a newspaper or a site that's writing information that is not in the name of a politician, we could do it. If it's not being posted by the politician on their personal page or their party page, etc., so we could decide to do it.
This is another interesting information. So basically, if a politician is publishing a fake news, it's not under your supervision. I understand, right?
We could do it as AFP, but we wouldn't strike it on Facebook.
And why is that? The
Facebook,
politicians are free to to spread fake news. They are protected.
They're not protected, but Facebook doesn't want to compromise free speech, political speech. So
in the case of the politicians, it's a free speech. In my case, it's not free speech.
If politicians are, I think the idea is that people should be able to decide who they want to vote for based on that political platform. So they have a right to know the political platform of various politicians. So Facebook doesn't want to compromise that.
Yeah, I understand. I think this is debatable, but of course it's their decision, so we can't argue. In my opinion, it's wrong for them to be somehow leave behind. Okay, I understand the reason regarding that the public should judge if somebody it's publishing fake news and he's in a public position, but if the public doesn't know about the fact that this is a fake news, I think is debatable, but anyway. Cristian Pantazi from G4 Media, an independent news outlet in Romania. Let's hear Cristian.
Hello. Can you explain the mechanism used by the fact checker? I mean, how exactly is he or she choosing the post he is checking? Thank you.
Well, I can explain some of my daily routine.
Please do so.
Well, first of all, I'm using a tool that Facebook put at our disposal, which is the tool Bronwen was describing earlier, where you basically see a list that's ranked of the posts that were flagged by Facebook users as being fake. And you see them and you have several ways to arrange them. And you can arrange them in terms of distribution, in terms of date when they were published, and so on. So, of course, beyond the criteria that Bronwen mentioned, which means, imminent health risk and possible danger, violence, and so on, you also have to look at how much it's been distributed and shared. Because if someone says something completely fake and outrageous and it reaches 3 people, it's a waste of effort to go for it. But if it's reaching 15,000 people or 100,000 people, then it might be a criteria to go for it.
Upgrade 100.
Mă opresc doar puțin să vă rog, dacă ați ajuns până aici și credeți că merităm, un like, un subscribe, un review pozitiv, mai ales în platformele audio pe care le folosiți. Ne-ar prinde foarte bine să ne vadă mai multă lume, să ajungem cu cultura digitală și tehnologia la tot poporul. Mulțumim!
Upgrade 100.
I still have some questions for you before drawing the conclusions. We know that We are seeing every day that a good portion of what's out there in social media is basically clickbaits or different pieces of content that are meant not to disinform the audience, but to generate some money, some traffic, because we all know the global platforms are also paying for each ad impression and so on and so forth. We have in Romania and everywhere in the world a lot of websites that are doing that for a business, so to generate revenues, and they are mixing true stories with fake stories. They really doesn't matter. The truth is optional. All that matters is the traffic they are able to obtain, and this technique is often, unfortunately, even big brands are doing that under the pressure of revenue. So how do you treat clickbait in this project if you have also this under your watch?
Well, one of the things we do when we decide on stories that we're going to cover or debunk is we look at the comments to see how seriously people are taking this. So if it is clickbait that people are somehow believing it would be worth our looking into, I think. And if we were to rate something as false or altered content, which is intended to mislead, one of the Facebook penalties would be to reject their ads. So that could have an impact on the people who are producing this clickbait. And what our project in France, for example, has seen is certain sites that would be producing a lot of clickbait have, over time, stopped producing so much clickbait. They might still be producing stories which are perhaps not 100% correct, but they're not clickbait. So it is having some kind of impact that way.
Okay. Some other questions from our audience. Adriana Spulber is asking, I will try to translate instantly. Super guests tonight, congrats. I have a question. What is the process of fact-checking in the case of the informations or pieces of news that are considered to be misleading, but afterwards they are actually true? For example, we had this case with the remdesivir, the medicine for COVID. At the beginning of the pandemic, this wasn't considered safe, but afterwards proved to be pretty efficient. It's a difficult question. I don't know.
Yeah, it has been. It's tricky over the COVID period when we've all been discovering what's really going on. In those cases, we have a very transparent update and corrections policy. So if we need to change something in a story, we'll make it very clear that we're changing that. We can also lift ratings if we need to. So if we did rate something false, we can change it if necessary. And we make that clear in our stories why. But another point of depart really is that when we do the original story, we're very clear as to say exactly where we got that information from and link it. We try and have a link, a live link to, for example, the WHO, whoever it is that's giving this information. And we have a date, so we can say that as of June 12th, they said this, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the audience needs to understand that in the end it's a matter of trust, and the truth is not always something that cannot be disputed. For example, a lot of listeners keep asking the same thing. Why should we trust them? So basically, I will cover that. Why should you trust a very old media institution with a lot of employees and with the rules of working? So it's the same mechanism that you should apply when why should I trust a pilot when I'm going to fly to Paris for a weekend after the pandemic, of course. You have to trust sometimes some people in order to be able to do some things. So journalism is a profession, so you must trust professional journalism, and if the journalists are tricking you or you are consider that they are not doing their job well, you have to change your news provider or whatever. So in the end, it's better, in my opinion, to trust a media institution with rules and so forth than to trust, an account on Facebook that is not even real in many cases. At a different level, I'm curious. You're both journalists with an extensive experience. If you're looking back in time somehow, what do you think Facebook and all the big tech could do better in the past? So maybe, start this project 10 years ago or 8 years ago, or do you think there are things that should be done earlier, and how do you feel that the big tech is helping, or on contrary, the journalism in general globally?
I don't know if Andrei wants to say something there, but in my opinion, never before have we seen how much we need professional journalists who know what they're doing and who go back to good sources and, get the information right from the root of where we need the information. So social media has maybe been a big platform, and it is probably, Facebook is the biggest social network with something like 2 billion users. But established media is there, and we are there, AFP is there, and we're able to use that platform to put out what we know is to be correct information too. I don't know, in terms of the past, I don't know, but I know in the future we are there. And we're helping to put the same standards that we would require in our newspapers, etc., on this kind of platform. If that answers your question.
Yeah, in my opinion, one of the things Facebook should do is just to change the name of the newsfeed, because in the newsfeed there are not too many pieces of content that can be considered news, at least deontologically speaking and professionally speaking. Okay, another question that a lot of people are asking is if they can be involved somehow, how our listeners who wants to help this project can do so. Is there any, a volunteer-based platform or something you're planning in order to help Andrei or anything else? What can they do? Because obviously it is a matter that people are concerned about.
Well, there are two very simple ways that they can help. The first one is to flag stuff that they feel is fake themselves. Mm-hmm. And the second one, a more direct one maybe, when they see something that's been shared up to a ridiculous amount of time, maybe just drop me an email.
Okay. What email? Or are you sure you want that?
Yeah, I'm sure. I just said it's been shared a ridiculously big amount of time. Actually, on the blog, which is verificat.afp.com, there will be a contact email. Because, this will be useful also to the people who feel like they have been wronged by our work, which I'm sure will be many. And in case that the conversation is civilized, we are more than happy to address their questions.
So basically the web address is verificat.afp.com. Right? Okay.
And you can already see a handful of stories, and it will be updated, and it's still not completely finished. Like, we still have to upload the methodology and so on.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I have a last question. Please let our listeners know what is the key information that the public should know about this partnership, about this project, in your opinion. And maybe I failed to ask you. And here is the opportunity to answer to the key questions I didn't ask you.
Well, just from my side, I just want to say it's a priority for AFP. We take this very seriously because there is a lot of dangerous news out there. There's posts that want to create fear, anxiety, to mislead people. And, it's good that we're playing our part to try and stop that and to take unhealthy things off the social networks. And ordinary people can play their part too. I mean, one should be discerning when you read a post, if it looks a bit strange, if there's no source, if it's being a bit alarmist and you can't quite figure out why, have a look and read carefully, and people need to perhaps think critically themselves. It's an important project, and we're very proud and pleased to be part of it, and we're very happy that we are now in Romania, and hopefully we can grow some more. Welcome to Andrei, welcome to Romania.
Andrei?
Well, if there's a few things that maybe people should take away from this discussion is that, well, they should remember that it's just starting. This project in Romania is just starting. Secondly, that there's a very clear distinction between AFP and Facebook, and we've explained that. And third, keep in mind that we are only humans. We have not yet been updated with Bill Gates' chip. So with that in mind, we're looking forward to getting this started.
Andrei, Bronwen, thank you very much for your time, and I really, really wish you good luck and energy to help Facebook to be great again, and the whole social media. And I guess, and I hope that the good faith journalists from all over the world will have a louder voice in the future, and the public will be informed properly, and this will be just a stage that we will all make fun about in maybe 5 years from now. Let's be realistic. Thank you very much once again.
Upgrade 100 live now. Install the best version of you.
Evident, este un proiect complex, complicat, o discuție care implică foarte multe laturi și nuanțe. În mod evident, Facebook încearcă să folosească prestigiul AFP ca o opinie personală și pentru a-și mai spăla imaginea, după multe presiuni și din partea publicului și din partea brandurilor și din partea Uniunii Europene, care forțează compania să ia niște măsuri. Iată, încet încep să apară mici inițiative. Este un pas mic deocamdată, să fim cât se poate de realiști. Andrei este un profesionist și AFP este o instituție media majoră, dar nu au cum să rezolve peste noapte o chestiune atât de complexă și un volum de informații false, misleading și de altă natură absolut uriaș. Eu sper ca acest prim pas să fie un succes, sper să avem cât mai puține cazuri, să spunem așa, puțin sau deloc pe cât posibil controversate, să dăm jurnalismului ce este al jurnalismului, și anume o profesie care se ocupă cu găsirea și verificarea adevărului înainte ca acest adevăr eventual să aibă consecințe mult mai serioase, inclusiv asupra sănătății oamenilor. În pandemie am văzut cât se poate de evident că există și acest pericol. Dar, da, există și pericolele de care ne temem toți. Puterea cenzurii să ajungă în mâinile unor oameni care poate nu sunt animați de cele mai bune intenții. Există, sigur, această teamă a unui minister al adevărului care ar putea să ne influențeze opiniile și așa mai departe, doar că eu cred că o chestiune de tipul ăsta, transparentă, asumată și cât de cât cu niște reguli perfectibile cu siguranță în timp, e o treabă mai degrabă bună și de susținut și de aplaudat decât de criticat și huiduit. Haideți să vedem cum va merge și să ne pronunțăm atunci. Ceea ce e foarte, 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 foarte evident e că ce se întâmplă acum în social media nu e în regulă. Așa că eu zic să mai încercăm și alte opțiuni. Eu am fost, sunt și voi rămâne Dragos Tanca. Vă mulțumesc pentru timp și pentru atenție. Upgrade 100 se încheie aici. Bye bye.
Upgrade 100 by Dragos Tanca at Radio Guerrilla. Shutting down the system.